Hey guys, Jace here with Fresh Tracks. I'm out here at the shooting range with Marcus. He's behind the camera. And today we're kind of just practicing a bunch of real life hunting scenario situations. So if you guys watched our video that we just recently released, it was our one-shot challenge video where the whole crew got together and we went out and took one shot in a real-world hunting scenario, and we only got one shot at the target to see how we lined up based on what we thought our ethical hunting range was. And myself, I'll speak for myself, I missed most of all of the shots I took there. It was tough. So what I really just want to emphasize in today's video is it's so easy to go to the range and practice, or not even practice, but when you do go practice, to just get prone and shoot prone. And a lot of times that's going to be your most steady and best shot. And then if I can do that in a hunting situation, I'd love to get prone. But I think what a lot of us need to work on, and myself included, is just positional shooting it all the way from standing to kneeling to like a modified prone position. So that's what I'm going to take you through here today. Hopefully the idea is that you guys will get out there and practice situational positions that are going to replicate a hunting scenario that you're probably going to find this fall. So we're going to jump into it. There's a little gully ravine behind me here that we're going to dive into and get off this bay, and we're going to practice some real hunting scenarios, and I'm going to show you some positions I like to use that aren't prone. So let's go do that. All right guys, so we made it down into this draw, and we're going to start with some standing shot positions. Now obviously when you're standing, it's going to be probably one of your least stable positions. So that's something worth practicing if you're not going to be very stable at it. So it's good to get some practice with it. But it's pretty apparent that just offhand freestanding like this, you're going to be pretty unstable. And in certain circumstances, short range distance is probably, if you feel comfortable doing that, go for it. And I think it's something worth practicing. We don't have a really close target where we're here at the range. Closest target I've got is 220 yards. So if you do have to take a standing shot and you have some trees or something next to you, that's a good opportunity to use the tree and be able to brace the rifle across the tree. Where we're at, there's not any trees to demo that, but we do have this swing set that I'm going to try to replicate it like a branch or a tree that I can brace against. So I'm going to go ahead and take a shot, something like this. We're going to see how steady I can get, and this is just going to be great standing practice. So again, this is about 220 yards. One of the good things about when you're out here practicing is you're not under a lot of time restraint, obviously, because the steel targets aren't running away. So don't be afraid to actually spend some time and get comfortable and find what position works. And if you're not getting stable enough to take the shot, find something else that's actually going to allow you to take a stable shot. There's no reason to just rush a shot when you're practicing, unless that's what you're going for, is like a timed shot. But right now we're just going to try to see how stable and comfortable we can get in these multiple positions. So yeah, take your time and find something that works for you. Nice dry fire practice in there. Yeah. Also a good tactic to practice dry fire. All right, so we got it on that one. I'll go ahead and just kind of adjust. Say your tree of limb didn't allow you to get that high, so maybe you're gonna have to shoot a little lower. Just, again, if we're out here practicing, doesn't hurt to just try different things and see what works best. That way, when you get out into the field on a hunt, you can kind of think back to some of these different tactics that worked for you. You'll see, hopefully, in the trigger cam, at first, I did a lot of like adjusting my grip and stuff, because at first I just wasn't comfortable with how much wobble I had. And I eventually was able to position and grip my hand around different things that I finally found the sweet spot, and I was able to shrink some of that wobble and take a confident shot. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Next, something I want to practice, and I think it could be a valuable option when you're hunting sage country like this, is if you have to take a standing shot and you obviously don't have a swing or a tree, a tripod could be a great option. So I've got my tripod that I typically hunt with. So I'm gonna deploy that to its highest height, and then we'll take a standing shot off that and see how we do there. Again, we're gonna shoot that same target, so I think we're roughly 230 yards from here, and I think that's a great range for standing tripod. I don't know how much farther I probably wouldn't want to push standing tripod past 300 yards based on my experience shooting from the standing position off a tripod. That goes for most standing shots. Yeah, 230 yards. Definitely wouldn't want to go too much farther than like that 250 plus range. So here we go. We're gonna see how steady we can get this. And remember, like, I'll typically, if we're at shooting rifle matches and stuff, shoot off a lot beefier of a tripod, and it gets easy to just want to use that when you're out at the range. But this is a hunting tripod that I'll typically have in my pack, so it's good to be practice with those things rather than just other things that you're only going to use at the range. So here we go. Let's take a shot at it. Standing tripod. All right, I felt pretty solid there. I'd say that was even more stable than the offhand standing, bracing myself off of something. So that's a good thing to remember when you're out in the field as well, is like, if you know you can shoot off a tripod better than bracing off of a tree and you got a tripod, you might as well deploy it. So those are the things that we're out here learning and seeing what works best. So I might take a look around where we're at. We're limited on targets. So maybe I'll try a little farther shot if I can get a visual on one. Okay, there's one at 310 yards. So we'll go ahead and shoot that one next. In a spot where you got uneven terrain, it's good to know if you're gonna deploy a tripod, make sure everything's level and even, and don't be afraid to adjust things if you need to. Like I said, don't feel rushed when you take these shots. Just figure out what works. I think I missed that one. Like I said, that is a small target, and my wobble is substantially more at this range. So doing stuff like this really allows you to know your limitations. So if we're not having luck on this, definitely wouldn't want to take this shot in a hunting scenario. Opt to get closer or find a better position. But it's good to work on these things. All right, so again, these are a couple good examples of standing shots, and I would even encourage you, if you got a target in the right distance for it, is just to even do a freehand standing. I mean, you never know if an opportunity like that will arise, and I mean, it's up to you if you want to take that shot or not. But if that's something you think you want to do, I definitely suggest practicing it, especially if you watched our last one-shot challenge video. We struggled on the offhand standing, so it's worth practicing. So now we're going to transition into some kneeling practice, and I'm just going to use what I would carry with me while I'm out in the field, such as my backpack and a tripod. So I might get up on a side hill and open up some more targets for us, and then I'll show you guys a couple kneeling positions that I would kind of lean towards if that's how I needed to take a shot. Here we are on a little slight side hill. In this scenario, we got a coyote target out at about 420 yards. Like I was mentioning earlier, if I can, I'd like to get prone whenever possible. But with this angle and where that coyote's at, you wouldn't be able to see him prone. So what we're gonna do is practice some kneeling, sitting style shots that gets us up a little higher off the ground. So what I've grown to really like is running a tripod that I can clip my rifle into. And what I'll use that for is a front rest. I'll clip my rifle into the front of the tripod, and then usually I'll grab my backpack and use that as a rear support. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that position up for you here now, and then we'll take a couple shots at that coyote and see how we do. Now this is where it's good practice, because on these side hills, you're really gonna need to know, or just get familiar with where your tripod comes out at, and like where's a good spot to get it set up on these hills nice and even. So. Now typically, if I can, when I'm using a rear rest and a tripod, I like to kind of mount my rifle out on the front of it rather than closer in, because I feel like it just gives me a little more stability. And I like to keep my right hand, I'm a right-handed shooter, so I like to keep my right knee under my shooting hand. But then that's where when the backpack comes into play. And really, if you have the time, it's good to just manipulate it in a few different ways and see what works for you. I got lucky last season, I was hunting mule deer, and I took a shot almost identical to this. And I luckily had some time, and I really got to, deer didn't know I was there, he was feeding, and I was able to really try a bunch of stuff until I felt rock solid before I took my shot. So from right at this height, I'm actually better off kind of almost sitting on my butt a little bit. So. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good here. Wind pretty much died down. All right, so let's go ahead and take some shots here. As you guys can see in the trigger cam, my wobble zone was really, really good there. So I feel pretty confident about that. I'm gonna raise it up a little higher and pretend we had some taller brush, so I can just practice another elevation and we can compare the difference. I would assume the higher I go, the more wobble I'm gonna have, or it's just gonna be a little more difficult to get settled in and stable. If your tripod allows it to widen those legs, you can get way more steady when you widen out the legs on your tripod, rather than just having them at your usual stance. So this backpack's wanting to fall forward. So to mitigate that, I'm gonna flip it around. That way it wants to fall into me and not so much away from me. All right, take two. Coyote. And that wind alone is making us wobbly just from blowing us. But so I feel like that was a pretty good example of some side hill kneeling shots. This is kind of my go-to setup. Tripod in the front and backpack in the back if I'm gonna take a shot like this. And these are two items I always have with me. So again, whatever you have with you, figure it out and just go practice it when you're practicing throughout the summer and spring and whatnot. So now we're gonna go ahead and move to a kind of what I'll call a modified prone. It's not where we're fully laid out, but say you have a log or something you got to build a rest on, but you can kind of lay down and maybe deploy a bipod or something like that. So we'll set up a little scenario. I'm seeing we got some logs to work with back here. So, and I'm going to say this is probably going to be your next best position to prone. So we have a bear target out at 630 yards. Now, 630 yards is a little far and probably not something I'd take on an actual hunt. But when we're out here practicing, I like to shoot farther than I'm gonna hunt, because then it makes those closer range distances feel closer and just overall easier in my opinion. So we got the 630 yard bear. Now the position we have set up here is like pretending we got some downfall or deadfall right here in front of us, a big log. And let's just say, I mean, I could probably do what we just did on the kneeling and tripod, but again, we wanna practice different things. So we're setting this tripod aside, pretending that's out of the equation, and we're gonna go ahead and build a modified prone position here. Now I can lay down, but again, I can't just put the bipod on the ground because I won't be able to see through the log or shoot through the log. So we have to build up our back end here and shoot off of the log with the bipod. So that's what we're gonna do. I have not shot this position yet. So we're gonna go through this together and find out how awkward this is together. But again, this is gonna be a great replication of what you might find in the field, and it's good to work through those awkward movements and positions so you know what's gonna work for you in the future. All right, so I kind of pre-built some things. I got the rifle out. I'd like to get the rifle, I might even go up a little higher, just gives me a little room because these rocks that are behind me are going back uphill. So this is one of those awkward spots where you're prone, but your legs are going higher than your head, which I've encountered before, and it's not fun. But here we go. One of the things I've really liked to do, since I'm always wearing my vinyl harness, and if I'm getting into a shooting position, I'll just quickly unclip it. Now it's around my neck, and I almost just have like a little back bag. I like to use it for a rear rest a lot of the times, so, or at least enough to, so I'm actually gonna flip my bag around. I just felt that it's a little void of space, so that's where I'm gonna put that vinyl harness, fill that space up a little bit, and settle in that bipod. Now, we're gonna find our target out in front of us, and there we go. I'm on target, got a round ready to go, and I'm feeling pretty dang good. My body's really awkward, and if I laid like this for a while, I'd probably get a cramp, but looking down the scope, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. So let's set up and get ready to take this. At a shot this distance, I've got a bubble level on my gun, so I'm definitely gonna want to check that level. Again, just take your time and you take your breaths. Now in the trigger cam footage, you might see that held kind of on its butt. In a hunting situation, I would not do that, but we've got a slight left to right wind here, so I just was accounting for that a little bit. I don't even know if I needed that, to be honest, because it kind of looks like I hit him right where I was aiming, but okay, I'm gonna throw a couple more rounds in and maybe just try a couple more spots on this log and show you guys how we do it. All right, so we're gonna shoot it again. I'm just gonna kind of adjust a little bit and pretend that we had a different situation this time. So I'll go off this log and that log, so it's like a lot more uneven, and I'm probably gonna have to build up my back end a little higher. So again, it's just gonna be just practice a different scenario and see how it feels. Now, let's see, okay, where's the target? This is pretty wild position, I will say. But, I mean, when you get into spots like this, it just definitely feels like you're hunting, because dang, nothing seems to ever be perfect in the field. Another thing that I'd suggest doing, it's easy to just, when you're out here with your hunting rifle, like single feed them. Just if you load your magazine, or load the mag, or the internal mag like on this Howa here has, and just actually feed them through that way to replicate hunting. That way you just can get a feel for exactly how things are going to be on that hunt. I gotta build up this back just a skosh. Check that level. Centered that one real good in the wind. All right, we'll take one more. We're just gonna slide down the log and just try a new position from down here, just to get all sorts of different ways. And another good thing you want to practice too is after you square up, or obviously try to always be square with the rifle, but to get a line like with your naked eye on where that animal is. So we're shooting a bear here, look at where the bear is, find him on the hillside, get squared up to him. That way when you get in the scope, he's already in there. A lot of times it's easy to just jump on the gun, put your head in the scope, and then you got to start scanning around with your scope. And a lot of times it's hard to find the animal doing that. So what I like to practice is just see that animal right over the top of your scope before you get into the gun. That way when you get in there, you're in roughly the right spot. And then that way you can also take landmark features and be like, so if you get in the scope and the animal's not there, but you see that tree you just saw, you know where that bear is in correlation to that. So yeah, that's just a quick tip that I kind of thought of there. So here we go. Let's take our last shot at him. And we missed off the right side there, so I noticed that, but let's go ahead and take a follow-up shot. Here we go. That wind picked up again. I didn't account for it, so that's another big thing is when you get in these positions, the more awkward they are, the more harder it might be able to manage that recoil as it comes back, but that's what we want to practice, is to get in those positions to where we feel confident and we take the shot, we can track and see where our bullet lands. Even if you hit the animal and he's still on his feet, it's best to keep him in your scope and rack another shot and send it. So that's kind of how I like to go about some training for hunts. So next time you're out the range, I'd encourage you to start trying a bunch of different positions. It's easy to just get down prone and shoot a nice group and feel pretty good about yourself. But then when you come and do this stuff, it gets humbling quick, and it's just great practice for the hunting season. So if you guys have any questions or comments, or you have any feedback, or let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.